Since a couple of years, I have this nagging sense that I should be doing better. Doing better with how I'm using my time, doing better with the videos I'm making, and even doing better as a person with certain parts of my personality that, I don't know, I guess I don't really like that much. However, for quite a while now, I was wondering if going to a psychologist could help. So I decided to hire a psychologist for 30 days and then document the entire process to show you what going to a psychologist would be like and how this is going to impact my life. Hi.
Hi, Jakob.
This is Marco, a trained psychologist and coach who guide me through a total of 6 psychological sessions in the coming weeks. And after telling him about my constant need to perform and how it negatively impacts my work, how it makes me enjoy my day less, and how it makes me way more self-critical, Marco came up with a very interesting hypothesis that would guide a big part of the upcoming 6 sessions that I would have with him.
I feel like in this particular moment, the way you described it, you have 2 sides within you. The one side is, come on, go faster, being like very harsh to yourself, like a little slave. Come on, keep it up, go faster. And then there's another part within you who's like, just want to enjoy my journey and just want to produce good work, just want to get ahead. And then this dynamic makes you work harder, yes, but you also notice, I'm not sure how long I can do this. For how long. I'm not even sure how we would call those sides. I mean, there's the one side who's like, come on, go faster, you should do it better. And then the other side, I'm not sure whether people like that video, I'm a bit insecure about that. How would you call those 2 sides if you had to give those a name?
The performer that fits.
Performer fits? Yeah, come on. But like,
The insecure.
is it insecure or what is it?
I don't know. It's hard to describe, of course.
However, in the remainder of the session, I couldn't really wrap my head around who that guy is. So in the upcoming days, I reflected more about it, and I also thought about the relationship between the 2 parts that I have within me. Yet, I still didn't fully realize how many problems this exact thing was causing, all until the second session, where Marco asked me where this performer started to become such a big part of my life.
End of high school, start of university, when I really got into self-improvement, and that's when I read like 100 self-help books and like a lot of people skills books. There, the performer came more and more out. I attached some certain pride when I was very, very good in university. And I think there, I was more, whenever I had a certain insecurity, I thought, well, at least, I'm doing so good at university. I am really growing, I'm getting more and more healthy, and I feel better. So I think it really came out slowly there, out of a certain ego and pride that I detached myself a little bit, but yeah. I guess that's when it really started.
But the way you explained it, what I thought is like, interesting. Jakob is always trying to do something. Like he's a human doing, not a human being. He's trying to be funny, like do a funny joke, or perform well, or do a great YouTube video, or have a high grade in class in university. And then, so if I do that, if I do a joke and people laugh at it, if I'm shooting a video, people like it, if I'm working hard and having a great balance while having good grades, then I finally prove to myself. So the strategy you have right now is simply, you always need to be a 10 out of 10 with your performance and balance and everything, like work-life balance, performance, YouTube videos, relationship, everything needs to be 10 out of 10, which has been, right, in university quite high. And now you notice I need to keep it up, I need to keep do stuff, which is partly dependent on others, for example, how well the YouTube videos go, and then I don't feel as confident. But you don't do confidence. You are confident. It's nothing that you need to do necessarily, but you make it very dependent on if-then game.
And hearing this really made me realize that I was way more off balance than I previously thought. So I decided to really do something about it and ordered a book which is called No Bad Parts. Now, the book is very similar to the sessions in a way that it also argues that there are different parts within ourselves that are constantly interacting and typically try to protect ourselves. So I sat down and tried to map out every single part that could be within me. The performer who always wants to do well, the distractor who tries to protect me from overthinking by doing something different, the sensitive one that we try to define in the first session, and the thinker who wants to understand how everything is fitting together. And maybe it was the thinker part within me going a bit crazy, But at some point, I became so overwhelmed by the complexity of all those different parts and what they do well and what problems they are causing and how they're all interacting, that in the third psychological session, where we met in the park, what I was talking about made absolutely no sense. So for the next session, we decided to take a step back and instead of trying to figure out every single part, to finally bring more clarity to the ones that I already know, the performer and the sensitive one. So Marco suggested doing something which is called chair work, where on one chair I would talk as the performer and on the other chair as more the sensitive side. And doing this finally brought more clarity and more healing. And if you also sometimes struggle with the need to perform or do well, then this conversation, and especially what Marco mentioned after, will probably help you to understand these things in a totally different light.
Hello.
Hi.
The performer. You're not actually talking to me, you're mainly talking to the sensitive, creative side, but I would like you to tell that sensitive, authentic side how you feel about that.
I guess I feel decent about the creative part because I think it also helps me. But I tried in the past to just be more free, be more creative, and be more sensitive, and then that also didn't really help.
Talk to the sensitive, creative side.
Yeah. I tried doing that. I tried stepping back, and then all I did in the end was wasting more time and getting less stuff done. And the stuff I did get done was even worse than what we'd made before. You know.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense.
Okay. Switch sides. Sensitive, creative side.
Yeah.
How does it feel now that you hear from the performer side that he actually wants to slow a bit down?
It's partially nice to hear, but also partially I don't trust it so much because you did say that in the past. You know, you're gonna slow down and then take more time. But then when we tried my way, which maybe took more time because it's more of a long-term process, then you said you're gonna step back. But then you didn't, you know? Not even for one video, of course, at the beginning a tiny bit, but you jumped back in after like 2-3 days, you know? Maybe less harsh, and you try to listen sometimes, but it's more, it doesn't feel as genuine. It's more like a parent who's very upset at his child and just tries to be very nice and tries to be very kind and tries to be, oh yeah, I understand your side, but not even like getting the side at all. It's just like, I get your side, but, you know, and it just...
How did you feel about that when you said all those things?
It's an element of like discouragement and...
Disencouraged?
An element of sadness, an element of...
Can you say that? Like, I feel
Yeah,
disencouraged?
I feel disappointed and sad and partially helpless because sometimes I don't trust fully that it does get better anytime soon, or maybe a tiny bit better, but not as well that I can really just speak up and be who I want to be without having this element of, yeah, you gotta do well, you know?
Switching sides again.
Now this conversation went on for about 20 more minutes, but yeah, it really helped me to understand myself a lot better. However, even more eye-opening was what Marco mentioned right after I asked him what this exercise typically looks like for other people.
But it's always the same, that there's usually some sort of rational side, a bit of a tough side, and then there's some emotional side. And those get in contact because the emotional side always feels a little bit hurt because the critical side is so tough.
Yeah.
And then though the emotional side also feels like the critical part is too tough, and what's not understood yet is the critical, rational part tries to help somehow, and it's very important. And the emotional part is also very important to some degree and is trying to help and is a little bit too much in the backseat. And this appreciation needs to be heard. And it's always the same process, that the emotional side shares a little bit what he or she actually feels.
then the rational side will be like, oh, I didn't know that, I was a bit too tough, I'm sorry about that. And then they talk a little bit. And then though the emotional side also notices, oh, you're not just a mean, bad guy, you also try to help somehow. Ah, interesting, I couldn't see that before because you've been so mean to me.
Did you ever had that the emotional side was more...
Yeah, of course.
Yeah?
Yeah.
How did that look like?
So people are just very overwhelmed, crying all the time. Are not very structured in their day. They're not very maybe they don't even have a job. They're very struggling with integrating any of those orders and rules and structure and discipline. And when those parts actually get along better and understand each other, that's when healing comes, and that's psychotherapy.
And hearing this somehow was a starting point of a shift within me. And when I continued to read No Bad Parts and do the exercise inside the book, which is a really good book that I can only recommend, something started to change, which really showed in the next session.
It's an interesting transition I feel like you're in right now in life, where maybe in the past you just climbed ladders and you were just climbing. And maybe a transition would be of, hey, I can decide when and where to climb. And I can climb, I'm very fast, I trained it the last years, but I can choose when to climb and how fast to climb and what to climb.
It's true, and I'm trying to climb so many ladders at the same time, you know? Yeah, even like, oh, now let's do sports. Oh, we can do sports better and push ourselves better here. And then it's not always as extreme in individual things. So I always calmed it more down. It's like, yes, I know people, I know people who are way more extreme than that, you know? But now I'm realizing, okay, maybe I'm not as extreme that I would label myself too extreme, but I'm a little bit extreme here, and here, in each area. And that taken together is just me trying to climb too many ladders, you know? And it's hard to put into words, but after the session, something within me just clicked. For instance, whereas in previous video projects, I often struggled, was really down, whenever a video seemed not good enough or boring, for this video that you're currently watching, something changed. Like, even though it's one of the most complex ones I've ever made, and even though I still noticed some parts that could have been more interesting, it was okay. I was okay. And whatever you might be going through, and no matter how big or small the problem might seem, I strongly believe that every single person can benefit a lot from talking to a psychologist. Now, in the final session, we reflected on my journey, and I thanked Marco for all of his help and support, whom by the way you can also work with by clicking the link in the description. And in case one of your main problems is your need to be liked, then you can watch this video next, where I was able to finally overcome my own need to be liked after struggling with it for more than 10 years. Hopefully it helps, and thank you for watching.